Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today we're looking at the 2015 to 2017 series Earth-2 Society. As it feels like I've been saying for about a year now, the original Earth-2 existed to keep telling the stories of the classic Golden Age superheroes owned by DC, particularly those that were part of the Justice Society of America. With the start of the New 52, Earth-2 was updated to a new version where the only superheroes were Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. These three would be lost in war against Darkseid, stopping the ultimate villain from claiming Earth-2 for his own. Fortunately, over time, new heroes would rise. The old heroes. Updated, modernized versions of classic JSA heroes like Green Lantern, Flash, Hawkgirl, Sandman, The Atom, and Dr. Fate would all appear, just in time for Darkseid's war against Earth-2 to erupt once again. This second war, featured in Earth-2 World's End, would see the heroes fail and Earth-2 be devoured by Apocalypse. But millions of people managed to escape the planet's destruction on spaceships and flee into deep space, though a number of the new heroes were trapped on the planet still. These heroes included Batman, the Flash, Green Lantern, and the new Superman val-zod, and they would be joined by former reporter Dick Grayson and the former avatar of the Red, Yolanda Montez. But she'll kind of disappear from the story altogether after this, cause I guess everyone forgot about her. But rather than die, these six were pulled into the Convergence, a massive event featuring the last survivors of hundreds of different worlds across the DC multiverse. For various reasons, I won't be covering Convergence right now, but the main thing you need to know is that by the end of that story, the planet it occurred on is converted for the surviving Earth-2 heroes as they're brought back into their own universe. And Green Lantern is able to signal to the surviving human fleet how to get to their new home, a second Earth. Earth-2, you might call it. And that's where this series picks up. So let's find out how things go on their Earth away from Earth and take this away. The comic opens 1 year after Planetfall. Not what you would probably expect. But we're gonna do some Lost cosplay here, flashing back and forth between the present and past to reveal and create some mysteries. Hopefully it has a more satisfying ending. Our first conflict is a division between our heroes from the previous stories. A not-so-jolly giant Green Lantern is stalking towards New Gotham, one of the cities built out of one of the crashed colony ships. Power Girl is begging Huntress to stop whatever it is she's doing, as it's making GL angry. PG's not able to do much about it herself because a red sun is making her too weak. She also doesn't want to call val-zod for help, apparently irreconcilably angry at him despite having spent most of the last series making goo-goo eyes at him. Flash is there to help her though, as is Batman. A new Batman, his cape and cowl filled by Dick Grayson it would seem. All these heroes so far, save Green Lantern, are united against Helena, who has on her side only Oliver Queen, and as we soon learn, Jimmy Olsen, who is now calling himself Dr. Impossible. What this trio is doing that has Lantern's giant green panties all bunched is that they're planning to use the Codex, now being called the Source Vault, which is plugged into something called the Genesis Machine. By using it, they plan to rewrite every living thing across the planet to recreate their old Earth. While GL, his power coming from the planet itself, wants to protect the things that already live on the planet. To understand how we got to this point, we of course have to go back to the beginning of this story, so let's jump back and see what led us here. It starts a year earlier, at Planetfall. The colony ships we saw the survivors of Earth use to escape their planet's destruction in the previous series have all reached the new planet following a signal sent by Green Lantern, as we discussed in the intro. This planet is Telos, named for the being that led the heroes of Earth-2 here. But as this planet is largely a copy of the planet they come from, they will also come to call this planet Earth-2. Which, honestly, I think is a clever little touch, coming up with an in-universe reason for their world to be called Earth-2 to the people that live there, and not just as a means of differentiating it from the main universe Earth. Because otherwise, I don't think anyone would give up the idea that their Earth is Earth-1. It does make it hard to refer to this planet for this video, though. Is it just Earth-2? Earth-2 again? Earth-2? 2? Earth-2-2? Sloan orders the planetfall, which really just means having all the ships crash down on the planet. Apparently, these colony ships weren't made to re-enter an atmosphere. I would argue that it's somehow weird that this tech super genius could have the foresight to build colony spaceships to escape a dying planet, but not the foresight to have them land again, knowing that they were going to have to end up somewhere eventually, but honestly, cruelty was probably the point. He probably wanted people to die in the crashes so that only the strong survived to populate this new planet or some bullshit like that. And of course, he's perfectly safe because his ship, Overwatch, stays up in space. Wait, Overwatch? Oh, is this how Overwatch starts? Pfft, don't they know it's all about Marvel Rivals these days? Down on this new Earth, the survivors of the crashes discover the heroes that are already on the planet. Green Lantern zooms around, doing his best to save all the ships from crashing too hard. He does it all without much emotion, as at the end of the previous series he embraced his role as Avatar of the Green and let go of his personality and sense of self. And now on this new planet, he is full on the embodiment of the Green for it. Also down on the planet is Dick Grayson, unable to move out of the way of falling debris due to his spinal injury. In Convergence, he had gone off with Batman to seek help from another Batman, and the two ended up being attacked by a group of Batman villains, and the Joker pulled a killing joke on Grayson, paralyzing him from the waist down. Thomas Wayne, the Batman that had come from Earth-2, blew himself up in an effort to take out these villains and save Grayson, which is why he won't appear in this series. The being named Telos had given Grayson a suit of armor that let him walk around, but without that, he's unable to move. Luckily, he's found here and rescued by Mr. Terrific. Not content with just crashing the colony ships, it will turn out that Sloan also is somehow aware of the codex that Helena is carrying. And he wants it for himself, of course, especially since he claims a traitor is somehow in their midst. Maybe more on that later. He enlists the help of the Sandmen, who I haven't really talked about much yet. They're led by Wesley Dodds, who was the original superhero Sandman from the original Justice Society of America, but here he's just one of a group of mostly unidentified men in a Sandman unit. They have teleporters and gas guns, though it's not really clarified how they teleport or what the gas does, though it is probably the reason that they wear those gas masks. Following orders from Sloan, the Sandmen teleport down to the ship Helena crashed on, and she and Red Arrow Oliver Queen attempt to fight them off. Helena asks Ollie to grab a gun, a statement he takes offense to, and he proceeds to take the Sandmen down with his bow and arrow like he's a Hawkeye main. Yeah, that's another Rivals reference. Look, I've been playing that game way too much, okay? It's a bit of an addiction, I'll admit. But Ollie must have been focusing on the vanguards while the strategist and duelist got the mission done. Typical. Because the Sandmen managed to grab the codex and get away with it. From there, the survivors of Earth-2 begin building cities from the wreckage of the crashed ships, with each city also sort of built around their own personal superhero, with Power Girl and val-zod helping from New Metropolis, Flash founding Midwest City, and Jimmy Olsen making a city called Erebus his home. The cities and their infrastructure gets built very quickly, largely thanks to the efforts of Flash running around everywhere and doing everything for everyone at super speed. At least until he gets exhausted from the effort and crashes out so hard that he mostly just starts to party and enjoy celebridom. What do you mean that's not a word? That's totally a word. Well, it's a word now, damn it. In New Metropolis... Wait, Neotropolis? Really? Okay. In Neotropolis, violence erupts led by a new female version of Anarchy, who isn't happy about the fascist control imposed by Overwatch from space, but Sloan shuts that down by firing a pacification laser on the protest and sending the Sandmen, who have become his personal stormtroopers by this point, to pacify the rest. That's pretty messed up of him. Guess Anarchy was right about that whole fascism thing. Maybe you should listen to people when they cry fascism. Ahem. In a rage at his abuse of authority, Kara and Val steal a Sandman's teleporter to teleport up to Overwatch. They're unable to fly up there because this new planet revolves around a binary star system with both a yellow and red sun, and red suns sap Kryptonian strength. Once on Overwatch, they see that Sloane has been experimenting with the Codex to create Earth-like environments. Convinced that Sloane is trying to play God, Kara still wants to shut him down. But the Weasel weasels his way out of their sights by explaining to Kara that it was actually val-zod's scientific genius that allowed Sloane to create the fire pits on their original Earth. Horrified at Val's participation in such genocide, and how those events led to the death of the first Superman, Kara runs away, swearing she never wants to see val-zod again. Of course, Val was just a teenager being manipulated by Sloane, and he's also horrified by his own past, and so decides to become a pacifist, to never hurt another soul again. At some point, Mr. Terrific makes Grayson an exoskeleton that grants him back the use of his legs, and allows him to adopt the Batman identity in this outfit that looks halfway between Earth-2 Batman and Batgirl of Burnside, which honestly is impressive that they were able to combine those two things. After a year had passed, Sloane had finished building a device to make use of the Codex, or Source Vault, or whatever they're calling it, to terraform the planet into a real Earth-2 with the original life forms of Earth. But when he comes to Earth to use it, the heroes all combine forces to shut him down, and the Codex is stolen and Sloane ends up murdered by issue 3. So once again, a major villain from a previous story is tossed aside like nothing within a handful of issues. Also, did him being dead have to look so silly? What is that? This starts a mystery into who killed Sloane, starting with blaming val-zod. Typical. But the murderer is pretty quickly narrowed down and revealed to actually be Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy has come to see himself as a god with his new Mother Box granted powers. He wants to use the Codex for himself, promising his followers that they will be spared as the rest of the planet is transformed back into the Earth they had before. His followers include Helena, who wants the chance to make use of the legacy her father left her, and Oliver Queen, because I guess he's pretty attached to Helena or something. Not entirely sure what's going on there. But they also include Anarchy, who hacks Overwatch and nearly crashes it into the Earth, and another villain introduced early in the series named Johnny Sorrow, an Earth-2 reimagining of a still pretty modern and new JSA villain. But most importantly, Jimmy's final henchman is the classic JSA member, Our Man. Rick Tyler's father created Miraclo, the drug that Thomas Wayne was using to be Batman on Earth-2 that granted him super strength. But Rick gets the drug back and perfects it, removing the negative effects it had and granting him nearly unlimited super strength for 1 hour, hence the name. However, it will turn out that Jimmy isn't trying to terraform the world. He's trying to convert it into a mother box. Realizing he's betraying them, Helena and Oliver join the heroes and turn on Jimmy. And with val-zod also showing up, finally, they're able to get the Codex away from Jimmy and destroy it, while Green Lantern imprisons Dr. Impossible, forever trapping him like an insect in amber. Inspired by their success against Jimmy, the Wonders attempt to form a Council of Wonders to lead the world, taking over as the new world rulers with Overwatch and Sloane taken out. Their main focus is a lack of resources that is leading to a potential war, as two of the cities prepare to invade each other for their supplies. A businessman named Kyle Nimbus is also taking advantage of the situation, selling bad batteries siphoned from radioactive waste produced by the crashed ship engines at exorbitant prices, despite the fact that they have a tendency to explode. Batman joins with Red Arrow and Ted Grant to take Nimbus down, but Nimbus has hired Our Man as his personal bodyguard, and turns out he has some superpowers of his own, able to turn insubstantial to avoid attack. Batman manages to put down Our Man with an anti-Miraclo that he made for just this situation, cause he's Batman, and then convinces the Wayward Wonder to join the side of good. Meanwhile, Ted and Oliver realize that Nimbus has to become solid to attack, and use Ted's years of toughening up in the ring to keep Nimbus distracted and solid long enough for Oliver to put the corrupt billionaire down with a well-placed arrow. Now that's how you shoot. Stopping the war, though, isn't so easy. After everything that has happened, regular people begin to distrust the Wonders just in general. They feel like the superheroes are anointing themselves as gods ruling the world with impunity, rather than allowing regular citizens to live their lives, and this is exactly what led to things like the Darkseid War to begin with. Whether it's true or not, I was definitely not expecting philosophical discussions about the nature and consequences of superheroes from this comic, and yeah, it's cause we've had a change in writers. Making matters still worse, there's been unexplained attacks from strange mutant creatures that come out of seemingly nowhere. The Wonders do stop the monsters each time, but that's not enough to stop the war. In the hopes of keeping the peace, Green Lantern holds a meeting between the two cities preparing to fight, but the city leaders aren't really interested in listening to what a Wonder has to say. In desperation, GL confesses something the council has only just learned: that this new world is completely devoid of any natural resources, other than the trees and plants growing on the surface. Which means no oil, no minerals, nothing they can use to generate more power. And they don't have the technology or means to try and run their world off of green energy like wind, hydroelectricity, or solar. This confession only makes things worse though. Realizing that the only way to get more resources is to steal those of another city, the two cities are now all the more committed to fighting. So as their forces gather, Green Lantern makes one last desperate ploy, using his green constructs to create an internet-working power system between all the cities and then powering it with the ring itself, using the nearly endless supply of the planet's own life force to provide power for everyone, taking away their reason for fighting altogether. Talk about your green energy. Yeah? Okay. But this means giving up being Green Lantern altogether, and it seems that a danger is waiting in the wings that had been preparing for exactly this to happen. This is the Ultra Humanite, but before we get to him, we need to check in on Hawkgirl. She's been out on her own, scouting and mapping the world, while also looking for signs of the disappeared colony ship, the TSS Aurora. What she finds, rather unexpectedly, hidden inside a cave under a mountain, is an entire colony of just women. This is a new version of Themyscira, led by Fury. That's not a Fury, like one of the 4 apocalyptic women we met in the last series, but the Fury, as in the daughter of Earth-2 Wonder Woman and Steppenwolf, who again has been around since the first Earth-2 series, but we on this channel only met briefly in the last series. Though Fury welcomes Hawkgirl into New Themyscira with open arms, her stay with them is not entirely voluntary, and she's suspicious of what exactly Fury has planned, and where all the men from the Aurora went. She attempts to sneak out, but lashes out when caught, and that leads to her discovering an allegiance between New Themyscira and Queen Morella, who is leading the surviving Atlanteans from a new Atlantis in, New Earth-2's oceans. And this secret alliance is only more suspicious, obviously. For the reader, we're given still more reason to be suspicious thanks to basically the only appearance of Dr. Fate in this series. At some point, I guess during the last series, his helmet was shattered. I looked for that happening specifically while reviewing the previous series and didn't find it, so I'm not sure when it was supposed to have happened, but I guess we're going with it. Anyway, he does keep a few shards of the helmet with him, and they are warning him that Kendra is in danger. Dun dun dun! Only, I guess she's also not. It turns out that when the Aurora, which now they're calling the Aphrodite, crashed onto Earth-2, its engines cracked, spilling radiation in deadly levels over all the survivors. In a desperate attempt to save them all, Fury opened Pandora's box, and rather than that leading to the crime syndicate and forever evil, it fused Amazonian souls into all the survivors, making them all into beings that are not quite their old selves, but not fully Amazons either. This somehow convinces Hawkgirl that Fury and Morella don't have any ill will towards the rest of the world, so she offers to be their ambassador and help them integrate with the rest of Earth-2 society. Hey, that's the name of the comic! So Hawkgirl leads a delegation of the 2 hidden societies to Neotropolis, where they can begin discussions with the other Wonders on how to best integrate their people. Only, it seems that the Ultra Humanite also planned for this, because their meeting has barely begun before they're all attacked by a new group of teenage Wonders who are after Pandora's box. And among this new group of Wonders is John Grayson, Dick Grayson's missing son. See, I told you him being sent off on his own would be important. We're finally wrapping around to how, but, you know, I told you to remember. It all starts with the Ultra Humanite. They don't go into him much here, but he was originally a mad scientist type supervillain who eventually put his brain into a gorilla's body so that he could have super strength to go along with his super brains. Because of his Golden Age origins, he most often appeared in Earth-2 stories over the years, including facing off against the Justice Society of America a number of times. Here in this story, he's a known villain, having existed, it would seem, from a time before the first Darkseid War. And he somehow snuck his way on board one of the colony ships to end up here on Earth-2 Los. That's Telos and 2, in case you were wondering. 2 Los. Yeah. Ultra is most likely the traitor that Sloan was worried about at the beginning, and who Sloan was trying to protect the Codex from by using it first. But even despite being denied the Codex, Ultra had plans within plans. Upon arriving on Earth-2, he'd set about kidnapping lost children and began brainwashing them and manipulating their genetics to bring out superpowers. And one of those children, of course, happened to be John. The shock of seeing his father alive breaks John's programming as he realizes that his father actually didn't abandon him as the Ultra-Humanite had insisted. I mean, real talk, John, he actually did, like, kind of a lot, and I don't feel like he was really trying that hard to look for you, but I guess let's just ignore all of that. Confused by the reality he's been confronted with, John simply runs away, leaving the initial attempt to grab Pandora's box a failure. But Huntress hunts him down and rescues him, reuniting him with his father just in time for a second attack by the Ultra-Humanite in an effort to get the box. This attack starts with him mind-controlling the now defenseless Alan Scott, who he then has call back his power ring to become the Green Lantern again. And with basically the most powerful hero on Earth as his puppet, the Ultra-Humanite is able to quickly defeat all the gathered heroes. All except for one, Red Arrow, who has been left inside the vault containing Pandora's box as a last precaution. But rather than fight, Oliver simply talks his way into Alan's mind, playing mind games until Alan is able to break his programming and lock himself inside a force field to keep the Ultra-Humanite's control away. But the Ultra-Humanite no longer needs Alan, showing up to kill Oliver and take the box for himself, ready to claim his prize and destroy the world, changing it into one of his own making. Luckily for the side of good, a different set of heroes led by Batman show up just in time to stop the Ultra-Humanite, though they have no more success than their friends had earlier. So once again, out of desperation, Fury, awake once more, opens the box, deciding it is safer to remake the world herself rather than let the Ultra-Humanite do it. And as a result, the world fades into nothingness. Except for Flash, who now finds himself in an endless white void, filled with just the barest outline of a city. He eventually finds Power Girl, Red Tornado, and Hawkgirl are in the city with him, and Lois realizes the city around them is Metropolis. And not New Metropolis, Neotropolis, but Metropolis from their previous Earth. They also find that they're not alone, besieged first by a strange disembodied voice giving an eerie countdown, and then by Sandman. But not the Sandman they know. This one has more of the classic Sandman look to him, which is a much cooler look if you ask me. And it also helps make him super creepy, especially when we learn there's an entire legion of him waiting to attack the heroes. I love how creepy and weird this whole portion of the comic is. Man, this comic just keeps getting actually better. It's weird. The Sandmen attack the heroes, seemingly desiring to eliminate them, but the heroes manage to fight them off as val-zod shows up to join them. More Sandmen come, though, attacking a second group of heroes consisting of Batman, John, and Huntress that are lost somewhere else in the void. And as the two groups fight, the heroes accidentally break the fourth wall, discovering that beyond the white void of the city is an actual city in full color. As the cohesion countdown ends, they all find themselves pulled into this full color world, which turns out to be an idyllic version of Metropolis. Batman's team is immediately met there by Captain Steel. Well, Sergeant Steel now. Steel has been with us more or less since the first Earth-2 series, a guy covered in an almost invincible metal body. But his role has been so extremely minor in the series up to this point that I haven't bothered mentioning him. And let's be honest, there's way too damn many characters in this series already. I've been having to say this whole thing about them not being important yet a lot. Just know that he was there all along, so the heroes do recognize him. But he doesn't recognize them, this version of him, though he is trying to help these extrinsics, as he calls them, people he believes come from a parallel universe, get to safety. Steel is leading an underground resistance against something called Central Command, which has been expecting the appearance of wonders and even created a few itself, like Steel and the Sandmen. Meanwhile, the other group, forced to fend for themselves, realize they've found themselves in a unique version of their own world with its own history unfamiliar to them. They decide they need to hide so they can figure out what they can about this new world, and don some disguises in the hope of doing so. I love val-zod's Clark Kent disguise, and his CSI Miami glasses moment here. What has happened is that the Ultra Humanite also came through into this world, but somehow managed to arrive well before the heroes and started molding the world to his liking, preparing for the day that the others would follow him and arrive as well, including making himself some Lex Luthor style mech armor. Knowing what to look for, he's able to immediately find the heroes, at least those not with special shielding provided by Sergeant Steel, rendering their disguises completely useless as they're attacked by another army of Sandmen. But the Sandmen prove to not be enough to stop the heroes, so the Ultra Humanite unleashes his secret weapon, Green Lantern. GL had also come through the transition to this new world, but remained in his fugue state the whole time. With the extra time afforded to him by arriving early, the Ultra Humanite has discovered how to take control of Alan even in his protective barrier, and uses that power to unleash the hero on the other Wonders. The heroes are again unable to defeat Green Lantern while he's under the Ultra Humanite's control, so it's fortunate for them that Batman leads a sneak attack on the Humanite's base. The Ultra Humanite is unimpressed by their assault though, and puts the heroes down without concern over breaking his concentration. But Batman isn't willing to give up, unleashing an unrelenting attack on the villain, swearing that he won't stop fighting even after he's dead. Ultra Humanite decides to test that theory, snapping Batman's back and throwing him to the floor, seemingly dead, and saying this apparently was enough to make him stop. Only this was also enough to break his concentration, and he lost control of Green Lantern just long enough for Alan to show up to the Ultra Humanite, and Al simply kills the Man-Ape and finally brings an end to this fight. With that finished, the heroes accept this world as their new home, and integrate themselves into the society there, becoming the superhero protectors of this generally more peaceful world, and forming a society of their own, one based on justice. A justice society, if you will. This society includes val-zod as Superman, and keeps Flash, Fury, Green Lantern, Captain Steel, Power Girl, and Hawkgirl, with Helena now having taken over as Batman, and keeping John Grayson as her Robin. I love the affirmation val-zod gives in accepting that she is Batman, and not Bat something else, and she always was. She just hadn't realized it yet. The entire group is led by Oracle, who in this instance is of course Dick Grayson. He survived the Ultra Humanite's attack after all, but without Mr. Terrific around to build him a new suit, he's accepted his role as a more background player, and as he leads on this new society for justice in a finally golden age Earth-2, will lead on into the breakdown. I was not expecting this comic. After the somewhat disappointing first series and the very disappointing World's End, I figured DC just didn't have it in them to make a good Earth-2 series during the New 52. So I guess it helps that this is sort of post-New 52? I have to say, not trying to be mean, but the best thing for this comic was that Daniel H. Wilson stopped writing it. He wrote the first volume here in the entirety of World's End, and I don't want to say he's a bad writer. I understand Robopocalypse is a perfectly fine book, but he certainly couldn't do justice to these characters. Instead, the legend Dan Abnett took over for volumes 2 through 4 and just absolutely killed it. I was not expecting the sudden switch to philosophical discussions about the nature of power and ruling and leadership and war and being a hero, and I absolutely love that he infused all of that into this story, all while bringing a much stronger emotional focus to each of the characters that allowed us to actually start getting into their minds and caring about what happens to them. I also wasn't expecting the sort of soft reboot bringing us back to a golden age world like the original Earth-2 had, but I kinda love that they did that. It certainly doesn't hurt also that, with but a couple of notable exceptions, the art was really strong in this series. I especially love Bruno Redondo's art in volumes 3 and 4, who did an exceptional job at matching the mood Abnett was creating with his writing. So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of high. This isn't just the best Earth-2 book from this trilogy, it's a great comic book in general, filled with the kinds of explosive action and thought-provoking idealism that any good superhero book should have. And I think it's more than worth checking out, even if you haven't read the other Earth-2 books. The collected editions get 2 New 52 Sandman masks, and 2 Classic Sandman masks. As always, that's moving from bad to good, because that classic look is absolutely killer. Love it. That breaks down pretty simply like this. Volume 3 is only 4 issues, and while it does make up for that with an annual, it has no other bonuses whatsoever. Volume 4 also has no bonuses, but it does at least have a full 6 issues. Volume 2 has only 5 issues, but is still pretty packed with featuring a bonus cover, a sketch art gallery, and a pretty sweet script-to-page breakdown. Lastly, Volume 1 contains 7 issues, a mini intro comic, a bonus cover gallery, and a concept art gallery. All in all, nothing too bad here, honestly, but Volumes 1 and 2 are still the definite champions in terms of content, even if 3 and 4 are the victors in terms of story. Thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. With that, we are finally done with Earth-2, at least as far as this little trilogy goes. Maybe there will be another Earth-2 comic someday, who knows? Anything's possible. Up next, I'm planning on starting a new occasional series focusing on Marvel Rivals things, because again, I'm pretty obsessed. And also finally getting to those X-Men comics I've been promising forever, and hopefully more Marvel big event stories. So if you did enjoy this video, or you're interested in that, or you're just wishing for a new golden age, then be sure to click the like and subscribe and all those things so you can help the channel out. And so you can help yourself to be sure to be here next time, and I hope to see you then, right here in the Comic Cave.